And welcome back, Psychic Unicorns, Queer Witches, and Dice Dragons, to another episode of ESPDND. Today I am very blessed to have three wonderful, wonderful panelists with me on our first official DM Roundtable 2021. Welcome to all of our lovely, fabulous guests in our DM Roundtable. To start, my name is Eryn Spencer. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a dungeon master slash mistress for the ESPDND actual play live stream, which we hold every other Saturday on our Twitch channel, playing Tomb of Annihilation, followed by the Heaven's Fire Homebrew World. We also do long-form podcast content about D&D and occasionally about pop culture, usually, as you all know, somehow relating in the broader spectrum to D&D. So welcome to our guests. We're going to go around the table, so to speak, with our lovely new overlay, which I'm very proud of. I've become sort of an expert in Photoshop, and by an expert, I mean a glorified amateur. So, welcome again, clockwise. Let's go ahead and just dive right in, starting with Yuki slash Folkard.
Hey, my name's Folkard. I have a YouTube channel called Lutes Dice. It's all about Dungeons and Dragons, and also my own fantasy music that I compose specifically for people to be able to use it as a background music for D&D. Right now, I'm working on the soundtrack for the Out of the Abyss, the unofficial soundtrack. Yeah, so you can check me out there.
Awesome. And thank you, Yuki slash Folkard. Adam Ray, the Izzet Tinkerer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, trees and non-binaries. Adam Ray, the Izzet Tinkerer, they, them, please. I'm a writer of pop culture and Dungeons and Dragons news, as well as news about the League of Legends card game Legends of Runeterra. I write primarily on the Apotheosis Studios blog, where I brew new monsters, items, situations, and adventure hooks for your TTRPG experience, primarily focused on Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I've been dungeon mastering and rolling within Dungeons and Dragons for the better part of 10 years now across multiple systems, and gathering in many stories as I possibly can. I think this game has defined me as a creator and as a person, and I'm thoroughly privileged to be here talking with you lovely, lovely people in this community.
And last but certainly not least, Liza, world building woman from TikTok. We made friends on TikTok, so welcome. Very happy to have you here.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for the introduction. Liza, world building woman, she, her. I met Essie on TikTok, which is where I primarily do my D&D content. I also have a Discord community called Worldbuilding Weirdos, where I blend my creative writing communities and my D&D communities together to bring world builders of all kind to kind of just bounce ideas off one another and kind of, cross those paths there. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here and talk about this with you guys. You folks.
And welcome, and we are happy to have you here with us on the Roundtable as well. So for those of you who are here from Rory's page, as you know, my little humble TikTok is exactly that. But one of our staff members, our Twitch community moderator, and also one of our cast members for the actual play live stream, Rory Brown Designs. I would say lately, most of the people that we have that are being drawn to our Twitch channel, thankfully, are coming from Rory's community. So shout out to our staff member on TikTok, Rory Brown Designs. Go check them out. You may be here because of Rory, so thank you, Rory, for sharing the ESP Twitch channel and for sharing the joy of what we do here on the ESP Twitch channel and community at large. So today, obviously, we're here to talk about D&D. And I know we all have a lot on our minds. We have burning questions, burning thoughts, burning opinions that we are very eager to share. And as content creators with our respective niches and these wonderful communities that we have built, again, I am very excited to dive right in. So we have a bit of an outline. The current state of D&D 5e when it comes to module content versus homebrew content. And one thing that I like about 5e this far into the life of 5e is that there's a lot of supplements on both DM's Guild and Drive-Thru RPG. So I wanted to kind of go around the table and get everyone's thoughts on what you think the current state of D&D 5e is, as far as the WotC modules, as far as whether or not you're drifting more towards homebrew, on whether or not you're homebrewing modules and kind of inserting your own worlds and flavors and completely dismantling the 5e modules, or as we call it on the extended sort of 5e compatible. You'll see that a lot in the DM's Guild and Drive Through RPG. So let's start with whoever wants to jump in. What's your current take on the state of 5e and the state of all of the vast content we have? You can see all my books back there. And homebrews. What do you prefer? Are you leaning more towards homebrew this far into the cycle? Are you still going through the modules? What's everyone thinking?
I can jump in really quick. So, as probably the newest DM in the group, I've literally only been playing D&D since like June. But I have been world building since I was like 13. So for me, the modules were a fantastic place to start. And, to learn the mechanics, to understand pacing and kind of pick up on that. But like my natural inclination is to take them as a jumping off point and just run with it. So to do homebrew, to do world building, like, I'm getting ready to start a campaign that is based around like one of the salt marsh, stories. And it's not going to be anything like the rest of the book because it's like just kind of this one starting point. So my thing is, even though the modules are great content and I think they're a really great start for a lot of people and a lot of like beginners coming in learning how to do it, I really think that like they've made it so easy to expand upon it and build it into what you want to make it, which is kind of what D&D is all about. And so homebrew is the way of the future for me.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And the same, I feel like this is a pretty straightforward, pretty simple question, an easy softball to start with, because yeah, that's exactly what I did. I took Tyranny of Dragons and A Lost Mind of Phandelver, Dragon of Ice Fiery Peak, rolled them all together, and did a completely new story called Rise of the Zhentarim. The Zhentarim Empire controls the Sword Coast, and it is connected, but also different in a way that it has blossomed into hundreds of original characters. And yeah, I mean, an easy softball to start with. I think that seems to be kind of par for the course now, is taking the module. And with the 5th edition SRD, it's really encouraged. Sometimes some might say more so than other editions.
Yeah, I
because
find
of the
that
SRD.
very interesting because largely speaking, my introduction to the game was the exact opposite. To my mind, in my just under a decade of playing Dungeons and Dragons, I have run one module adventure, and I've been a player in an entire module campaign, but everything I have ever done has been homebrewed from the ground up. When I first started, some friends from my school asked me to DM something because we'd been playing some 4th edition together. So I built my world very bare bones, but still with a solid geography from the ground up, and just had them on a sort of round the world trip that led to a political thriller almost. And then the rest of the politics and the state of magic within the world sort of built itself around it. So I built my world whilst playing. And I've made such a strong setting that I feel very comfortable to tell any kind of story in it. I love everything you were saying, Liza, about just trying to keep the modules there open for newer players, just to have great springboards, and they're definitely strong for that. And I definitely felt that when I DM'd the preview adventure for one of the books that we'll probably talk about in the next section. I never really felt the need to use the crutch because I was very fortunate to have a world that I developed so strongly and could just roll with. But I see their strength, but for me, I feel that I've had a very contrary sort of way into the game.
Amazing.
Really? Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm sort of when I started playing D&D, I was very much into modules because I'm sort of a perfectionist, and when I see
Exactly.
a
Yep.
book, I like,
Same.
oh, I wanna run it cover to cover, just like a canon, And as like years have passed, and right now I'm at the state when I'm sick of the Forgotten Realms and all the modules. I'm like, like first couple of years I was buying every book that came. I was like, I mean, here in Ukraine it shows up in the stores like after several months. So whenever I was traveling to Europe, like I don't know, in Paris or Germany, I was like, I was talking to my wife, like we're stopping by at the game store, and I'm like Baldur's Gate or whatever. But yeah, a lot of those, like I have Storm King's Thunder, I have Tomb of Annihilation, Dragon Heist, the Dungeon of I never touched them. I mean, I used because it's really it's daunting to run the entire thing. Like Tyranny of Dragons took me 2 years to finish. It's crazy. I mean, I ran like one shots and smaller campaigns in between, but yeah. And I think I kind of my skills were forged while I was running this, and now I'm ready to unleash unlimited power and create and create my own setting. I'm sort of walking around just you know revolving this idea in my head of the setting, and I'm too lazy to just sit down and like plan it all out to the point when I'm thinking of like streaming it, like just turn on the stream and like, okay, I have nowhere to escape. I'm sitting and I'm creating my own setting because I have experience of creating my own stuff. The very first campaign that I ran was my own. I first got the Lost Mine of Phandelver. I ran the first session and it was a disaster. And then I thought, well, okay, but I love the game, so I got myself a Dungeon Master's Guide, and I just ran by the checklist of their how to create a campaign and stuff. So I created a settlement, then a couple of cities, but it was a total repoff of the Forgotten Realms. Like it was just a reskin, basically. But yeah, still. And then after that, I just kind of I didn't have time to do my own stuff because I was constantly running things to be able to make content for the Lutes Dice. Uh, and yeah, but even within modules, I would always like weave my own little adventure kind of like the middle link between the two parts. And my players usually enjoyed those the most. Like there was okay, that was brilliant. This book is good. I'm like, yeah, I actually came up with that. So it's always kind of flattering, but at the same time, I thought, well, hey, I mean, I should do my own world now when I have all this experience. I will not rip off the Forgotten Realms. I will rip off all the worlds that I yeah,
that
yeah.
you've
I mean,
built along the way.
yeah. I mean, everything. Like, I'm thinking about something like Dark Souls. Like, I want something because so we're playing this high fantasy setting, right? But I mean, to my taste, like it's not high enough because I mean it's high
More.
fantasy. There's so much stuff, and then we start at a village and we kill goblins every single time. We start. I mean, some equivalent of goblins. We end
Yeah.
up in a tomb and slay a necromancer or whatever. And I'm like, why? Why? So I want to create almost like an entire game, like a mod beyond the Dungeons and Dragons one, where first level is equivalent to like 10th level. So your first boss is a badass huge demon lord, kind of like in Dark Souls. Like the first guy you meet is this jailer. He's huge, and you're like, really? I have to fight this guy? So yeah, and if it's high fantasy, we're going as high as we can. So straight like right away, I don't know, a huge gothic cathedral that is run by undead or something. Or if it's a city, why can't it be like an angel city like from Diablo 3, you know?
Ooh, I like that.
So yeah, I want to just ramp up everything to like turn the knob to 11. That's what I've been missing all these years in the module. So right now I'm at the state where I pick Homebrew instead of module. But yeah, I mean the newer DM, I even encourage people to start with something like Lost Mine of Phandelver because it actually guides you through everything, introducing all the skills and everything. So here's what should you do. Talk to your players, and yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it explains stuff to you.
that's
I have a
that's so much. There's so much good stuff with everything you just said. Go ahead, Liza.
I was just gonna say, I kind of have like a hopefully quick follow-up question. Like, are you throwing these like bigger bad guys at them earlier, right? Like a level 10 boss at a level 1 player to kind of encourage them to go explore so that they might not like defeat him in that, but they have to come back like we were talking about before, you know, and kind of leveling up and beefing up before you get to the boss? Or is it strictly like you just want some bigger stuff earlier on and they will also have the abilities to make that happen? Like their character will also kind of match that higher level? Just
Yeah.
my own curiosity. Okay, cool.
So I mean both. So I
Okay.
like both ways. It depends. I love the idea of the villain showing up early on in the game like a super bad. But yeah, I like just bigger stuff and buffier characters and buffier everything. Just scaled up. Like they're not just dudes from a village. They're magical freaking heroes. But when I first got this feeling of how cool is it to introduce the villain early on when I was running Curse of Strahd, and Strahd shows up at like session 2, and he just chills while his wolves are tearing everybody apart, and then he's like, yeah, I'm that's it for now. I'm off, guys. See you
I
later. And they're like,
See ya, peace.
holy shit. Like, he could have killed us. Oh my god. And they were all bitchy about it. They were like, yeah, screw you. And he was like, point a finger and charm the guy and make him, I don't know, drink poisoned wine or something. Yeah.
That's the
Cool.
one campaign that I have not actually purchased because, as you know, we're on hiatus in our in Folkard's server. We have an ongoing Curse of Strahd campaign, DM'd by Exiled Ranger, which was temporarily
Oh,
on
really?
hiatus, but is now. We believe that Ranger is going to be starting our campaign again within the next month. But so I'm still seeing that from the lens of a player, which is interesting.
Okay.
I've heard, obviously a lot of spoilers as a content creator and a DM. I'm getting, I've kind of prepared myself for some of the other things I already know, but it's very interesting still not knowing everything about what's happening.
Yeah. I
It's a
mean,
great
I made a
campaign.
video, like 3 minutes of Curse of Strahd, and everything
Mhm.
is explained within 3 minutes.
Yes, I did see that too.
Oh, I was gonna warn you. But I mean, you knew where you're clicking, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
it's sad on the title, so yeah, it's not my fault.
But I know how to kind of dissociate a little bit, and it's being so quick of a
Yeah,
video, I didn't retain everything, and I tried to kind of zone myself out a little bit. But again, it's hard as a content creator and a DM to avoid a lot of spoilers, especially in modular
Mhm.
content. But it seems like we're all on the same page when it comes to starting as a new DM, especially for a new edition. Like I was a DM for GURPS for a long time, and 5th edition was a bit of a change. And I started with Lost Mine of Phandelver, and that morphed into the combination of Dragon of Ice Fiery Peak and Rise of Tiamat, Tyranny of Dragons, the whole overarching campaign with the Rise of the Centaurum. And I really liked what you said about these big, bombastic, sort of over the top themes, because with our home game, which again was that amalgamation of Lost Mine, Dragon of Ice Fiery Peak, and Rise of Tiamat. Within that module, we had this incredible overarching campaign between two or three different days in which I had the Lord's Alliance sort of flirt with fascism, and the players had to overthrow this ever-growing rise of fascism led by Dagald Neverember. They got to storm the city of Neverwinter with the full might of the Zentilar. We had siege towers, we had artillery, we had cavalry, the Wyvern Riders were there, we were integrating dragons, and all kinds of just banana hands over the top political intrigue and warfare. And by the end of that arc, and this was about a year and a half ago, so this was during the tumultuousness of everything that was happening in the US with the US elections and with Black Lives Matter and with Trump. And every single person And that party was so grateful to be able to put all of that sort of collective trauma that we had into D&D to overthrow this fascist nation, which, fascism is objectively a bad thing. They were also emotional, and it was such a cathartic release to be able to storm that city and depose a dictator, and to free the political prisoners that were there in pretty horrific conditions in a dungeon below the city. Everyone, myself included, was in tears, and one of our players who had approached me, and they were like, "Thank you for this, like, seriously." And that is something unique that you can only, that I could only have gotten from taking pre-existing module content and reshaping it. And I tried to take that, or take something like that and put it into our homebrew world that we're going to be doing on the Twitch channel, but it just didn't fit because it was its own thing, and I couldn't really recreate what we had created through that homebrew X module amalgamation that we had created, because the homebrew world was its own unique thing. But what I did find, to your point, Folkard, was that I can go even bigger. I can have these big, ridiculous, even over-the-top themes, integrating science fantasy and deities that are, basically universal galactic travelers, and the story just got huge and over the top, and there were these two separate things that we could do that each had their own respective place in both the module hybrid and the homebrew world. So everything you said, it really resonates with me, with having the political intrigue with the module, being able to bend the 5e factions in the Sword Coast and the Forgotten Realms, which are incredible, and then also take the homebrew content and be like, you know what? Let's just be a little over the top silly with this. But it works. Yeah. Any other thoughts on module versus homebrew?
Go
Found it
wild.
interesting to, go wild is definitely the way of it, because that was the struggle I had in the what little module experience I've had, is that I let my players go wild by default. Like, the only module I've ever ran was the introduction adventure in the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and I'd had like the plot threads for a potential campaign just like loosely based in my head because I know the setting so well, that I let one of the players just go off and run their old investigation, none of which was covered in the module itself. But I suppose I can credit my own experience as a dungeon master to be able to let them do that. I wonder if the rigidity of certain modules might be like a negative effect for newer dungeon masters. How would they be able to handle that sort of thing? That's always a concern that I would have, because as Yuki said, when they started, I wanted to cover it cover to cover, but that might not necessarily be possible depending on the people you're playing with. They might want to explore in ways that, no matter how well written the module is, there will always be something that can't be accounted for. And that kind of flexibility is something that I prefer to stick with as opposed to a module. However, they are still excellently written, they are still very diverse, and they still have a lot of bases to cover and lines of play that you can follow. But I do recommend, if you trust yourself as a storyteller, try to rely on your own creativity as opposed to something prescribed.
So would you say that... Oh, go ahead, Liza, sorry.
Just to build off of that a little bit too, like, and if as starting off you're a newer DM and you're wanting to like learn a little bit more and learn about DMing and you want to stick to the book, like, just set that expectation ahead of time in session 0 too, and just be like, hey, like, are you guys okay with like you kind of doing some stuff, but if I need to kind of like reining it back in to fit into the module, like, I don't know, just talk with your players, right? D&D is all about communication and talking about who's interested in doing what kind of early on too, is really helpful there. Yeah, but I think we're talking about session 0s and everything here in a little bit.
Yep. So it's saying the expectation for a session 0 would be essential, but if you're newer, I think those conversations are definitely essential. But
yeah, so flexibility is always key too. So
definitely.
Adam, do you have a favorite module? Would that be
That's okay. I own Horn of the Dragon Queen, and I've had access to almost all of them through various means, just to cherry pick particularly interesting plot threads, good monster blocks, good magic item blocks, just to be able to supplement my own world and my own writing. As a player, I have played in an excellently run version of Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I was a half-elf warlock in that game and was very involved in the High Art Society, which became very effective until a couple of sessions where I wasn't able to attend. They decided that my warlock patron had summoned me, and then I returned to the party with the information needed to actually complete the heist, having clearly aged several years and having somewhat fourth dimensional knowledge of time and space. So, by that logic, I'd have to say Waterdeep Dragon Heist sort of by default, because I have next to no experience with any other module that what Wizards have put out.
I mean, Dragon Heist is a great module. I ran it cover to cover and so much fun. How about everybody else? Do you have a favorite 5e module or a favorite 5e compatible supplement?
That's a relevant thing to say, but I'll let everybody talk about first.
Dragon Heist is my favorite. I'm playing it right now in a campaign, and my DM for it is just amazing. It's again, like we said, kind of just been a jumping off point. It's kind of becoming a homebrew just based on our interactions as players and what we've done. But it is kind of the foundation, and I've really, really enjoyed it so far. So
Awesome. Yeah,
I think that Curse of Strahd is the best for me.
Also very good.
I mean, I haven't run a lot of modules. Tyranny of Dragons, a little bit of Prince of the Apocalypse, and from what I can tell, it's a little bit messy from the start. Out of the Abyss is cool. It's very cool. But I like it more as a Underdark supplement, because like half of the book is designed to kind of make you able to run random Underdark encounters and stuff, and I really like that. But Curse of Strahd, I think, from the modules that I've seen, is the most fun, and I mean it's yeah, Barovia is not totally not fun, not really fun, but what I'm saying is it's kind of I like the sandbox nature of it, because I mean, it's perfect in terms that the players are thrown into this circumstance, and the goal is perfectly clear. Okay, we're stuck here. We need to get out, and it turns out that the only way to get out is to kill Strahd. And so the goal is super clear. The players are never lost. They know, like, okay, what's our next step? Let's figure out. I mean, it's not even a spoiler, I think, because it's kind of clear from the start. And then it has a map. I freaking love when modules come with maps that you can tear off and play with. So yeah, it has a map and all those towns that are written in a very interactive manner. In a way that it has a lot of information, but everything is open-ended, and all the characters and the events are given just the right amount of inertia to kind of, when you mix your players' decisions, it kind of just resolves naturally, and everything just resolves naturally in Curse of Strahd. And the fact that I mean, spoiler alert, the what do you call it? The fortune telling stuff is really cool because it's sort of replayable because of that. And the concept
Taroka Tarot.
Yeah, the fact that the key elements of the adventure that would help the players kind of win are randomly generated through fortune telling every time you run it. So that's pretty cool.
All right.
Yeah, Curse of Strahd is super cool.
Well, thank you all for your input on the state of 5e modules versus homebrew. I think we're ready to dive into the next topic, unless anyone has any final thoughts.